From the home screen on the mill computer screen, select DRO for digital readout and then the jog command. Pressing X will take you in the positive X direction. If you would like to change the direction the mill is traveling, hit the plus minus and then X again, and now you'll be traveling in the negative X direction. We also have the power feed feature on the Y-axis. However, the Z is only manually operated. Be careful on the Y-axis. If you don't watch where you're standing, it can hit you in a sensitive area when you're using the power feed. If you are going to drill multiple holes in a workpiece, it is very important that you square the vise up relative to the X-axis before you begin making cuts in your piece. We will use a dial indicator to feel how far the face of our vise is moving as we move across the X-axis of the face. The clamp will clamp onto the spindle of the mill. The dial indicator is adjustable. You can turn the dial so that it is at 0 when needed. It can articulate at several different places so that you can adjust it properly to get onto the workpiece. When you have the dial indicator clamped onto the spindle, you should be able to rotate the dial indicator around, and it should not move vertically at all. Make sure it is securely clamped to the spindle before you begin taking measurements on your workpiece. To begin squaring up the vise, start the dial indicator on one side of the vise face. Press the dial indicator so that it is picking up a reading on the face of the vise. It's important not to overload the probe on the dial indicator. Put 5 to 10 thousandths worth of pressure onto the dial indicator so that you will be able to measure any movement that occurs as you move across the face of the vise. You can also go ahead and put the dial indicator at 0 so that it's easy to determine what direction and how much the face of the vise is moving as you travel across it. Once everything is set up, begin moving across the vise. If you notice the dial moving, that means it's not square, and you need to adjust the vise so that you're not moving relative to the X-axis. Once you have determined the direction that the vise needs to rotate, you can bump it with either a rubber mallet or the palm of your hand to adjust it gently. Make sure that one side of the vise has been loosened so that you are able to adjust it without using too much force. Once the adjustments have been made, travel back across the face of your vise. Typically, you're still going to see 1 to 3 thousandths worth of movement across the face. That's about as good as you're going to be able to get in our shop. If you're working on a long piece, you may also need to check that it is level relative to the bed of the mill. Set the dial indicator on the top of the piece instead of the face of it, and then repeat the same process. Travel across the workpiece and measure how much it deviates from one end to the other. Then gently raise or lower one end until you are able to move all the way across the piece with minimal movement. On a piece like this, we're still going to see 5 to 6 thousandths worth of movement across the piece because the edge that we have the probe moving along is not perfectly straight. But from one end to the other, there's about 1/1000th of an inch difference. So we do have the piece level, it's just the piece isn't perfectly straight in the middle. If a piece is held in a vise but is thin, we can use parallel bars to lift the piece up off of the vise. Place the bars under your workpiece so that they are flush against each of the faces of the vise, and then place your workpiece on top of the parallel bars. This will ensure that the piece is held up off of the vise so that you can drill into it, but also parallel to the bed of the mill. The point end of the edge finder will allow you to center your spindle over a point on the part. Here we used a punch to put a dimple in a location on our part, and then we dropped the point of the edge finder into that dimple. We then moved the X and Y axis of the mill so that there was no wobble in the edge finder. In order to find the location of the edge of our workpiece, we will use an edge finder. The edge finder will go into a chuck arbor on the mill, and the tip of the edge finder is set so that it will make the part wobble until we have the center of that tip located right below the center of the chuck arbor. So if there's any wobble in the edge finder, it means we have not quite found the edge of that part. So start out with your spindle off the edge of the workpiece and move the bottom of the tip to the side so that when you turn the mill on, it's wobbling. Then slowly move the edge finder towards your workpiece until all of the wobble is gone.